I didn't ask for much. A quiet home, a hot cup of tea, the soft hum of my sewing machine in the morning, and the gentle chirp of birds outside my kitchen window. After 42 years of marriage, and 2 years since my husband Joe passed, peace was what I had finally learned to embrace, not because I liked being alone, but because I had made peace with it. I had worked hard my whole life, raised 2 children, cooked thousands of meals, held Joe's hand through chemotherapy, and buried him with my heart still beating next to his coffin. But then came the knock at the door and everything changed. It was my son, Andrew. Andrew, my firstborn, the one I used to rock to sleep while humming Patsy Cline songs. The one who scraped his knees and ran to me crying. The one who cried into my sweater when he didn't get into that college he swore he didn't care about. But that day, standing on my porch with his designer shoes and Bluetooth headset, he wasn't my little boy anymore. "Hey, Mom," he said, giving me a quick hug. "Can we come in?" "We?" He stepped aside and behind him stood Clarissa, his wife, and their 2 kids, Chase and Bella. They smiled. Sort of. I smiled back. Sort of. "Of course, come in," I said, stepping aside. Clarissa walked in like she was doing me a favor. The kids barely looked up from their phones. Andrew sat at the table like he was about to deliver a presentation at work. He clasped his hands together and gave me that overly calm voice people use when they think you might break. "Mom, we've been talking, Clarissa and we think it's time. You stopped living here alone." I froze. I hadn't expected this. "Excuse me, you're 73, he said gently. "This house is too big for you. It's not safe. What if something happens? What if you fall? You could be lying there for hours. I have a phone." Still, Clarissa jumped in. "We were thinking maybe it's time you moved in with us, just for a while." The smile on her face was as fake as the flowers she brought me last Thanksgiving. And the way she said "with us" made it clear I'd be the guest, not family. "You've got that little guest room in the back," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Clarissa nodded. "Exactly. It's cozy, and we can clear out the storage bins to make room for your things." I looked around my home, the faded curtains Joe helped hang, the worn rug in the hallway, my garden outside full of the marigolds I planted every spring since I turned 60. I knew then, they didn't want me safe. They wanted me out. I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "I'll think about it." That satisfied Andrew enough to let them leave. But as the door closed behind them, I stood in the hallway and let the weight of it settle in my chest. It wasn't about my safety. It was about their convenience. 2 weeks passed. I didn't bring it up. I thought maybe they'd let it go. But then came the phone call. Clarissa sharp as ever. "Hi, Margaret." So I went ahead and called a moving company. They said they can come by Tuesday to help you pack. Isn't that great? My heart thudded in my ears. "I never said I agreed," I replied. She laughed. "Margaret, don't be silly. You know it's for the best." That word "silly" cut deep. Like I was a child, like I didn't own this house, like I hadn't raised the man she married. I hung up without saying another word. And I didn't cry. I made tea. I sat in the kitchen, and I made a plan. The next day I started organizing, not my things, not packing, planning. I pulled out my binder, the one Joe and I had kept updated since night. Inside were copies of our mortgage, our will, bank accounts, even the deed to the house. Everything was in my name now. Everything. I called my lawyer, Ruth Bernstein, and made an appointment. "Let's talk about how to protect what's mine," I told her. She said, "Finally." At dinner with my neighbor Carol that week, I told her everything. She clutched her wine glass and said, "Oh honey, they're not helping you. They're cornering you." "I know," I said. But what they don't know is, I'm not scared of being alone. I'm scared of losing who I am just to make someone else comfortable. We clinked glasses to women who don't go quietly. On Sunday, Andrew came over again. Clarissa didn't join him this time. He walked into my kitchen with a folder in his hand. "I've found a real estate agent," he said. "Her name is Stephanie. She's great. You won't have to worry about anything. Just sign and she'll take care of it." He laid the papers in front of me. It was a listing form for my house. The name on the line was blank. He thought I'd fill it in. "Andrew," I said slowly, "do you remember who bought this house?" He blinked. "You and Dad did. Do you remember who paid the last 15 years of the mortgage after he died?" He hesitated. "Do you remember whose name is on the deed?" He swallowed. "Yours." I pushed the papers back toward him. "Then I think you can take these with you when you leave." He stood there blinking like he'd been slapped. "But Mom, I'm not leaving this house. You are." That night, I took the folder with all my documents and tucked it under my pillow. It might seem strange, but when your own child starts acting like you're just a piece of furniture they want to rearrange, sleeping with your deed under your head feels like armor. And I knew this was only the beginning. It started with whispers. Whispers when I was in the kitchen. Whispers when I walked down the hall. Whispers when they thought I had dozed off in the recliner. "She can't keep up anymore. I think she forgot the mail again. Did you see the stove? She left it on last week." It was strange hearing people speak about you like you were already gone. Like you were some character in a story they had to rewrite for everyone's benefit. But I was still here. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't losing it. I was simply older and slower. But I was also wiser. And most importantly, I was aware. Andrew and Clarissa had been coming over more frequently, offering to help with laundry, groceries, and organizing important documents. But I could feel it. They weren't helping, they were scouting. Clarissa in particular would make casual remarks while holding my china plates, or looking through the linen closet. "These towels are nice. They'd match our guest bathroom." Or, "This room would be perfect for Chase if we repainted." She was laying claim to things, my thing. While I was still living in the house, Andrew didn't say much, but his silence was louder than any argument. He let her talk like that, let her act like the house was already hers. I had reached my limit. The moment that finally cracked me was a Sunday lunch. Clarissa brought over a roasted chicken and made a whole show of setting the table. "Let me take care of you, Margaret," she said, placing the napkins just so. We sat down, Andrew at the head, the kids flanking him. Clarissa served herself first, then the kids, then Andrew. I was last. As I reached for a piece of bread, Clarissa turned to Andrew and said, loud enough for me to hear but quiet enough to pretend it wasn't for me, "I don't think she's remembering her vitamins anymore." Andrew gave a short nod. "Yeah, maybe we should put her on one of those pill reminder apps." I set the bread back on my plate, carefully. Then Clarissa added, "Or just take over her medications. It's really not safe for her to manage them alone." Still looking at Andrew, not me, like I was an object, a patient, a burden. I stood up, slowly. "Excuse me," I said. They both looked up, startled. Maybe they thought I didn't hear. Maybe they thought I'd let it go. I didn't. I walked down the hall into my bedroom and shut the door behind me. I didn't slam it, just closed it gently. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around at the quilt I'd sewn myself, the books I'd read twice, the photo of Joe on the dresser. The room felt like an anchor in a storm. I took a deep breath. I would not let them decide when I stopped being a person. The next morning I made a decision. I drove myself, yes, drove to Ruth Bernstein's office again. She met me with a calm smile. "They're pushing again, aren't they?" I nodded. "They talk about me like I'm already in a home." Ruth folded her hands. "Do you want to make the trust tighter?" "Yes," I said, "and I want to add a clause." She raised her eyebrows. "Go on." "I want a clause that says, if anyone tries to take legal guardianship over me without medical cause, they're cut out entirely." No exceptions. Ruth smiled slowly. Now that's a paper they won't see coming. We spent the next 2 hours going over everything. She updated the trust, the medical directives, and a little piece of power, my durable power of attorney with very specific instructions. No one touches my finances, no one touches my decisions. Unless I say so, and I wasn't saying so. That weekend, Andrew came over alone. He found me on the porch. "Hey Mom," he said, sitting down. "You okay?" I looked over at him. He wore the same hopeful expression he used as a child when he was caught doing something wrong but wasn't sure if he'd be punished. "I'm fine," I said. "I noticed you've been quiet." "You noticed that?" He looked uncomfortable. "Clarissa's just worried. We both are. We just want you to be okay." "I am okay. We want to help." "Then stop trying to control me," I said plainly. He blinked. "That's not what we're doing." "It's exactly what you're doing." I pulled the folder from under the seat cushion. I handed it to him. He opened it slowly, read the first page. His eyes widened. "This is legal stuff." "Yes. Mom, this says you've restricted financial access, and that if anyone tries to claim you're unfit, they get nothing." I finished for him. He looked up at me, stunned. "You think I'd do that to you?" "I think Clarissa might, and I think you'd let her." He stood abruptly, angry now. "This is insane. We're trying to help you." I stayed calm. "If you really want to help, let me live. In my own home, on my own terms." He was quiet. Then he said, "You're being paranoid." I didn't flinch. "No, Andrew, I'm being prepared." He left without hugging me. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No guilt, no fear, just silence. And the hum of my house, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I wasn't alone because I was forgotten. I was alone because I chose peace over pressure. It was always about control. I see that now. Clarissa had smiled sweetly when she offered me a plate of cookies. She had hugged me tightly when she brought over her homemade soup from the store deli. But there was a pattern to her kindness. It only came when she thought she was gaining ground, and when she realized I wasn't budging. That kindness melted faster than butter on a summer sidewalk. The calls stopped. The text dried up, and then came the silence. Andrew didn't visit for 3 weeks. No Sunday lunches, no checking in, not even a polite excuse, just absence. Cold and clear, but silence doesn't scare me. I lived through the Cold War. I lived through burying my husband. I've sat in empty kitchens before, and still managed to find peace in the rustle of trees outside my window. What did shake me, though, was what came next. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Carol, my neighbor, knocked on my door, holding her phone out like it was a crime scene photo. "You need to see this," she said. I put down my crossword and squinted at the screen. It was Clarissa's Facebook post. She had tagged Andrew, the kids, and a few other people I barely knew. The photo showed their family at a model home. Polished floors, new countertops, big smile. Caption: "Finally taking the next step. Proud to be building a space that will keep our loved ones safe. No more risky solo living for Grandma either." My stomach turned. They hadn't asked. They hadn't even told me. I wasn't included in that decision, but I was the centerpiece in their performance. "She's making it look like you're moving in with them," Carol said. I nodded. "I know, but that wasn't the worst part." 2 days later, I got a call from the bank. "Hello, Mrs. Holloway," the man said. "We received a request to update the joint ownership of your savings account. We just wanted to confirm you authorized your son to be added." I nearly dropped the phone. "No," I said sharply. "Absolutely not. Do not allow any changes. I'm coming in." That afternoon, I marched into the bank with every legal document Ruth had prepared: the trust, the power of attorney papers, the will, the notarized letters. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I presented. By the time I left, I had spoken to the manager, locked down all my accounts, and added biometric verification. No one, not Andrew, not Clarissa, not even a government official, was getting into my accounts without my say. I walked out into the sunshine, lifted my chin, and took the long way home just to feel the breeze. But the war wasn't over. The next day, Andrew showed up. He didn't knock, just walked right in using his old key. I met him in the hallway. "You need to knock," I said firmly. His face was red. "Why are you locking down your accounts? Why did the bank call me like I'm some kind of criminal?" "Because you requested access without telling me. It was Clarissa's idea." I raised an eyebrow. "That's supposed to make it better." He was pacing now. "You're acting like we're out to get you. You're acting like I'm incapable." He stopped, looked at me. "You're 73, Mom. And what exactly does that mean?" He hesitated. "It means things happen. You forget stuff. You don't always answer your phone. Andrew, I am still of sound mind. I still pay my own bills. I still cook my own meals. And I'm still your mother, not your patient." He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "And let me be clear. This house, my money, my life, they're not yours to manage. Not unless I ask." And I didn't. He looked ashamed for a moment, then defensive. "So what? You're just going to die here alone someday. That's your big plan?" I didn't blink. "No, I plan to live here peacefully. Until the day I choose otherwise." "That's the plan," he muttered, unbelievable, and stormed out the front door. But not before I followed him, locked it behind him, and slid the bolt closed. The next week, Clarissa texted me. It was short, cold. "We tried to help. If you want to isolate yourself, that's your decision. But don't expect us to clean up the mess later." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I replied, "Understood," and I meant it. Days passed. Then weeks. The garden bloomed without an audience. The laundry folded itself into neat piles. I played records Joe used to love and cooked one-portion dinners with quiet joy. I wasn't lonely. I was free. But one night, I got a surprise visitor: Bella, my granddaughter, 16, too tall for her age, wearing a hoodie and earbuds, and that look teenagers get when they're pretending they're not hurting. She knocked. I opened. "Grandpa," she said softly. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She didn't say much, just looked around, then sat at the kitchen table like she used to when she was little. After a while she said, "They talk about you like you're sick or something." "I'm not." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I'm here." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a card, handmade, a little crooked, heart drawn in the corner. It said, "You're not alone unless you want to be." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Bella." She hugged me, really hugged me, and said, "I miss the way things used to be." I smiled. "Me too." As she left, I slipped something into her backpack when she wasn't looking. It was a copy of the trust, the power of attorney, my will, with a note on top. "One day, if they try again, show them this." She'd know what to do. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I heard the knock. Not a polite knock, not a family knock. This one was official. Measured, like someone checking a box on a form. I opened the door to find a woman standing there, wearing a beige pantsuit and holding a black leather folder. Her badge hung around her neck, and her smile was the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Holloway?" she asked. "That's me," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm Cassandra Bell. I'm a social worker with Adult Protective Services. I'd like to speak with you for a few minutes. Just a routine wellness check. My heart sank. It wasn't a wellness check. It was a power play. I stepped aside and gestured her in. Come on in. You're just in time for tea. She blinked, surprised. Thank you. I set 2 cups on the kitchen table and poured Earl Grey from the pot I had just brewed. She sat down and opened her folder while I added honey to mine. I've had a report filed anonymously, she began, regarding your safety, specifically that you may be experiencing confusion, memory lapses, or difficulty managing your household. I sipped my tea, calmly. And what gave them that idea? I asked. I can't say. It's confidential, but I do need to ask a few questions to ensure everything is in order. Of course, I said, because I was ready. She asked me my full name, date of birth, my address, my son's name, my husband's name, all of which I answered clearly and confidently. She glanced down at her form, scribbling notes. Then she asked, do you take any medications? 3, I said. For blood pressure, cholesterol, and arthritis, all mild, all managed. Would you like to see them? She nodded. I brought the bottles from the bathroom, each one labeled, not expired, stored properly. She nodded again. Next, she asked, are you aware of your financial situation? I have a binder in the hall closet, I said. Color-coded tabs. You're welcome to see it. Her eyebrows rose. I retrieved it and set it in front of her. She flipped through and found everything in order. Bank statements, bills, investments. All organized. Would you say you feel safe in your home, Mrs. Holloway? I looked her in the eye. I feel safer than I did when people thought they could run my life for me. There was a pause, then she set her pen down. I have to be honest with you, she said, lowering her voice. This report didn't feel like a concern for your health. It felt like retaliation. I smiled slightly. That's because it was. Before she left, I handed her a folder. My attorney prepared this, I said. It outlines my trust, durable power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive, and current will. Everything is signed, notarized, and up to date, just in case anyone tries again. She took it carefully. Thank you. I don't foresee any issues, but you'd be surprised how many people try to weaponize concern. Oh, I'm not surprised at all. As she walked to the door, she turned back. If I may say, you're one of the most competent seniors I've ever met. Thank you, I said. I get that a lot. The next day Andrew called. I let it go to voicemail, then he texted. Why is a social worker calling me? Saying you filed a complaint against us. I didn't reply, because I hadn't filed anything. They had. They had brought a spotlight onto themselves, and it wasn't flattering. Later that evening, Clarissa called. Her voice was sharp, cold. Margaret, what exactly are you trying to prove? That I don't need you to manage my life. I said, this is going too far. Clarissa, you sent a social worker to my house. It wasn't like that. We were worried. No, I cut in. You were losing control. That's what you're worried about. She didn't speak for a moment. Then, do you really think your granddaughter should be involved in this? Giving her legal papers, she offered to help, like real family does. You're poisoning her against us. No, I said gently. You're doing that all on your own. 2 weeks went by. The silence returned, but it didn't feel cold this time. It felt peaceful. I tended to the garden, repainted the front door, and baked 2 pies. Just because I wanted to, not because someone expected a meal. Life was quieter, but it was mine again, until Bella returned. She knocked this time. I opened the door and smiled. Hi, Grandma. Come in, sweetheart. She sat on the same stool she had years ago, swinging her legs slightly, like she did when she was 7. I think they're mad at me now, she said. Why? Because I told them I agreed with you. I reached for her hand. Do you? She nodded. They treat you like a problem, but you're not. You're the only person who listens to me. That nearly broke me. We sat together for hours talking about everything. School, her art projects, how she wanted to go to college far away. You'll do great, I said. And if you ever need a quiet place to stay, this door will always be open. She hugged me tightly. That night I found a note she'd left under my pillow. It read, "You're my safe place." 7 words. That was all. But it meant everything. The hummingbirds had just returned to the garden that morning. I was sitting on the back porch with a cup of tea, watching one dart between the lavender bushes. When I heard the front doorbell ring, I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked slowly to the door. When I opened it, my heart sank. Andrew was standing there, and beside him stood a woman in heels too high for the gravel path, holding a leather folder and wearing a bright blue blazer that practically screamed realtor. "Hi, Mom," Andrew said, forcing a smile. "Margaret, is it?" the woman chirped. "I'm Dana. I specialize in senior housing transitions. I didn't invite them in." I crossed my arms. "What exactly is this?" Andrew cleared his throat. "We just want to talk about some options. That's all." Dana has experience helping families like ours make tough decisions. Tough for who? I asked. Dana stepped forward. Aging in place is very common, but it also has risks. Falls, isolation, lack of supervision. I held up a hand. "Let me stop you right there," I said calmly. "You're wasting your time." Andrew looked annoyed. "Mom, you're not listening." "No, Andrew," I said, my voice firm. "You're not listening. You're assuming." Again, Dana smiled like I was a small child refusing medicine. "I know change can be hard," but I stepped back into the house, grabbed a folder off the hallway table, and returned to the porch. It was the deed, the updated one, in my name only, under the Hartley Living Trust. I opened it and showed it to them. "This house is mine, legally, financially, permanently, and unless you're planning to trespass, you are not authorized to tour it, list it, photograph it, or speak about it as a property on the market." Dana blinked. "Oh," Andrew looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "You're serious about this?" he muttered. "As a heart attack," I said. "Now please leave, both of you." They left. Dana never said goodbye. Andrew didn't even turn around. He just got in the car and slammed the door harder than necessary. I stood on the porch for a long moment after they drove off. Not out of sadness, but out of sheer disbelief that it had come to this. That night, I got a voicemail. It was from Clarissa. "Margaret, we are trying to help. We are offering solutions. But if you continue down this road, locking everyone out, refusing to cooperate, don't be surprised if the rest of the family starts distancing themselves. You're making it very hard to care." I stared at my phone. Starts distancing. They already had. The next morning, Carol dropped by with muffins. She had seen the car pull into my driveway the day before, and figured something had happened. When I told her, she shook her head. "They act like you're just an object to be moved." "That's exactly how it feels," I said. Carol was in her 60s, sharp as a tack, and not shy about her opinions. "If it were me," she said, "I'd get a security system, just in case." "I already have," I told her. "Installed it last week." She grinned. "That's my girl." Later that day, I sat down and made a new list. Not chores this time, not groceries. Just truths I needed to remember. I am not a burden. I do not owe my family control over my life. Independence is not selfish. Silence is not weakness. I am allowed to choose peace. I taped it to the inside of the pantry door, so I'd see it every day. That weekend, Bella visited again. This time she brought me flowers. Yellow daisies and baby's breath. They don't know I'm here, she said softly. You're always welcome, I replied, hugging her tightly. She sat in the living room and told me about a paper she was writing for school, about women reclaiming their agency in old age. I'm using you as one of the examples, she said with a shy smile. Me? I laughed. Yeah, Grandma. You're the first woman I've ever seen take back power in real time. Everyone else I know just gives in. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Hope, maybe. Pride. Both. After she left, I found a small envelope tucked under one of the flowers. Inside was a note. Thank you for teaching me what strength really looks like. Underneath, she had drawn a tiny house with a heart in the center. I didn't cry, but I stared at that little drawing for a long time. That same night, I received an email from Ruth, my lawyer. She'd filed the final documents I requested. The irrevocable trust was now active. It would be nearly impossible for anyone to alter anything without court intervention. And given the medical evaluations on file, no judge in the country would overturn it. I was protected now, legally, financially, emotionally. And most of all, spiritually. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done reacting, done explaining, done defending. 3 days later, Andrew called again. I answered this time. He sounded exhausted. Mom, I don't know what to say anymore. Then just listen. He was quiet. I'm not shutting you out, I said. But I am setting boundaries. Strong ones. Because the last few months have shown me that love without respect isn't love. It's manipulation with a smile, he sighed. Clarissa's upset. She usually is when she doesn't get her way. There was silence. Then he said, Bella told me you're writing a new will. I already did. Are we in it? You are, I said. But it's not unconditional. What does that mean? It means respect is required, not optional. Another long pause. Then he whispered, I'm sorry, and I believed him, but I also knew it wasn't enough. Not yet, the silent treatment. It's a funny thing. It's supposed to feel like punishment, but after a while it just feels like peace. For weeks after I showed Andrew and Clarissa the deed and the trust papers, they went radio silent. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive fruit basket. At first it bothered me. Then I realized I liked the quiet. But the peace didn't last forever. One afternoon my internet stopped working. No email, no news, no video calls with Bella. Nothing. I checked the router, unplugged and replugged it. Still nothing. I called the provider. After 30 minutes of holding, a young man named Travis told me the account had been closed. Closed? I repeated. Yes, ma'am. It was a bundled account under another name. Andrew Holloway. He requested to terminate service 3 days ago. I closed my eyes. Of course, they couldn't control me anymore. So they started peeling away the pieces they thought I couldn't live without. Utilities, services, connections. But I was more resourceful than they remembered. Can I open a new account in my own name? I asked. Absolutely, Travis replied. We just need some ID and a signature. Good, I said. Let's do it. By the end of the day I had my internet back. This time with my own password, my own billing information, and no outside hands touching it. The next morning, I checked the other utility. Sure enough, the electric bill was also still in Andrew's name. I called and transferred it. The water? Same thing. One by one, I cut the cords. They tried to pull. I printed every confirmation page and stored them in my binder under a new tab, Reclaimed Independence. 2 days later, I got a text. From Clarissa. Why did you change the passwords to the smart thermostat? It's freezing in there. I almost laughed. Freezing? They hadn't set foot in my house in weeks. I replied, It's 71 degrees in here. Just warm enough to keep my bones happy. No response. I was fine with that. Later that day, I installed a new camera system. Carol helped me mount it over the front door, and we laughed like teenagers trying to read the manual. By sundown, I could check the porch and driveway from my tablet. I wasn't afraid, but I wasn't foolish either. That night, I had a dream. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, reading the paper like he used to, coffee steaming beside him. He looked up at me and said, "It's about time, Margaret." "Time for what? Time for what?" I asked. "To live for yourself." I woke up smiling. The next morning, Bella called. "Grandma, I wrote about you again for class." "You're going to make me famous," I teased. "No," she said, "but I'm going to make sure you're remembered for who you are, not how they treated you." That hit me right in the chest. "What did you write this time?" I called it The House That Stood Up. I sat back in my chair. "Tell me everything." She read the whole essay to me, every word dripping with honesty, warmth, and fire. It ended with this line: "Some homes crumble when the foundation cracks, but my grandmother became the foundation." I didn't cry, but my voice cracked when I said, "That's beautiful, baby." She giggled. "I'm mailing you a copy." 3 days later, Andrew finally showed up. He didn't knock, he just walked up the steps and stood on the porch, like he wasn't sure if he should press the doorbell. I saw him on the camera and opened the door before he could decide. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. "Hi, Andrew." He looked tired again, like life had worn down the corners of his ego. "I guess you know what happened with the utilities." I nodded. "I fixed it." He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know we've been pushing hard, maybe too hard. She worries, you know." "No," I said. "She controls." He didn't deny it. He just rubbed the back of his neck like a boy who got caught lying. "I miss you," he said. "I miss who you used to be," I replied. He looked down at the porch floor. "I never meant for things to get this messy. But you let them," I said softly. "And that's what hurt the most." We sat down on the porch swing, the same one Mark had built with his own hands. It creaked under our weight. "Do you really not trust me anymore?" Andrew asked. "I trust you to do what's easiest for you, not what's best for me." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I want to earn that trust back," he said. "Then stop trying to fix me. Start listening instead." He nodded slowly. "I can do that. Time will tell." That evening, Bella texted me a photo of a painting she'd made. It was of a tree, but instead of leaves, the branches held little keys, each one different. Some old and rusty, others shiny and gold. Underneath, she'd written, "Grow your own doors. Use your own keys." I smiled so wide, I thought my face would crack. The next morning I went to the bakery downtown and ordered 2 loaves of Mark's favorite rye bread. The woman at the counter smiled and said, "You always look like someone with a secret." "I am," I told her. She laughed. "Care to share it?" I looked out the window at the street below. I just remembered I don't need anyone's permission to live well. It started with a knock, not a buzz from the camera, not a warning text, just a knock. I opened the door, and there they stood. Clarissa, Andrew, and Bella. Clarissa was holding a box of pastries, like peace offerings made of sugar. Andrew had that nervous smile he wore when he wanted something. And Bella, well, her eyes said everything. She hadn't known about this visit until the car pulled into my driveway. "Hi, Margaret," Clarissa said, with that too sweet tone. "We were in the neighborhood. Thought we'd stop by." "We wanted to check on you," Andrew added too quickly. I leaned on the doorframe. "You mean check if the locks still worked?" Clarissa chuckled like I was joking. "Well, you made your point, loud and clear. But maybe we all just got a little emotional, huh?" Bella looked down at her shoes. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. Finally, Clarissa stepped forward. Could we come in, just for a bit? It's been so long since we all sat in this house together. It might be good for closure. Closure. That word rattled around in my chest like a loose screw. Still, I stepped aside. 15 minutes. They walked in like tourists in a memory they didn't own. Andrew stood by the fireplace. Clarissa wandered into the kitchen and opened a cabinet like she still lived here. Bella lingered by the window, her arms crossed. It's just like I remember, Andrew said. Same lamp, same rug, same smell. I sipped my tea. That's what happens. When you don't come around, things stay the same. Clarissa placed the box of pastries on the table. We've all had time to cool down. Maybe we can talk now, civilly. I raised an eyebrow. Did I scream at anyone? She ignored that. Instead, she said, Look, Margaret. We understand now that we might have gone too far. But we were only trying to make sure you were safe. I set my tea down. You were trying to make me disappear one bill, one insult, one locked bedroom at a time. Andrew shifted. Mom. You told the neighbors I was confused. You let Clarissa tell people I had memory issues. You called me fragile, emotional, and overbearing. All because I didn't want to be managed like a houseplant. Clarissa's mouth opened and closed. She had no defense for that. Then she said it. Well, at your age sometimes things do get confusing. And that was it. I stood. Time's up. Andrew looked up, startled. Wait. That's it? Yes, I said calmly. You got your 15 minutes. You walked through your memories. You reminded yourselves what it used to be like, and now you can go. Clarissa looked furious. We drove an hour for this. Then I hope the pastries were good, I said. I walked to the door and opened it. No one moved. Finally, Bella stood. She walked over and hugged me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know they were bringing me. I know, I said. You're fine. Andrew walked to the door looking like a boy again. Mom, can we? Not today, I said. Clarissa stormed out without a word. Andrew followed. And Bella? She left me a folded note on the counter before closing the door softly behind her. I stood in the living room for a long time after they left. I looked at the coffee table they used to leave their keys on, at the worn cushions of the couch that had heard every argument and every apology, at the ceiling fan Mark installed with Bella watching from the floor. No older than 5. And then I walked slowly to the front door, unlocked it. The next morning I read Bella's note. It said, They don't deserve you, but I'm still learning from you every day. Thank you for not giving in. I folded it and placed it in the drawer beside Mark's wedding ring. That afternoon I made a decision. Not from anger, from clarity. I called Ruth, my lawyer. Ruth, I said, I'd like to update the trust. Again. What do you want to change? She asked. Remove Andrew and Clarissa from future designation. Make Bella the sole successor trustee. She's the only one who never asked me to shrink. Ruth didn't hesitate. Understood. The process took 3 days. When it was done, Ruth mailed me the updated packet. I signed every line with the kind of steady hand they thought I'd lost. I sealed the folder and placed it in the fireproof box by my bed. For safekeeping. For truth-keeping. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Andrew. I don't know why you're being like this, he said. It's not like we stole anything from you. We just didn't want to see you get hurt. And yet, they had hurt me. Not with fists, not even with cruel words, but with absence, with assumption, with that quiet kind of betrayal that only family knows how to do. That weekend, Carol and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. She brought over homemade lemonade, and we listened to the wind move through the trees. You ever regret it? She asked. What? Standing up to your own? I shook my head. Not once, she smiled. That's the thing about solitude, she said. It's not always lonely. Sometimes it's just freedom with quiet shoes. A week after I updated the trust, I received a letter in the mail, not from Bella, not even from Andrew. It was from Clarissa, typed, neatly formatted, cold as winter. She respectfully requested that I consider leaving part of the property or at least a portion of its future value to her and Andrew for all the care, time, and emotional support they had poured into maintaining the family home. I sat at the kitchen table, holding the letter with both hands. No greeting, no warmth, no apology, just entitlement dressed in legal phrasing. I didn't get angry. I got organized. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out everything. Receipts from grocery runs I'd paid for while they lived with me. Utility bills they never touched. Repair quotes they said were too much. But I paid anyway. Furniture they took with them. Bank statements showing withdrawal. Even an old credit card charge from the time Clarissa ordered an entire patio set on my account by mistake and never paid it back. Every single page I copied, every single one I highlighted. Then I wrote a response. Dear Clarissa, thank you for your letter. I was especially touched by the part where you mentioned emotional support. I must have missed it in real time, so I'm grateful you've now placed a dollar value on it. To help refresh your memory, I've enclosed a few documents of my own. $18.29 in groceries over 9 months. $0.40 in utilities while you all lived rent-free. $7.01 in childcare. Uber costs when I was too tired to drive. Bella 9065 Tidio furniture purchase. You never returned. One receipt for my dignity marked priceless. You once told me I was lucky to have you. I believed it, until I realized you only saw me as a resource. The property is already in a trust. Bella will receive it, because love doesn't come with conditions or invoices. Regards, Margaret Holloway. P.S. The best part about living alone is never having to justify locking the door. I mailed it the next morning. I pictured her opening it. I pictured her reading the numbers, the words, the simple, calm tone, and I pictured the slow realization that I wasn't confused. I was just done. That same afternoon, Bella called me again. Grandma, guess what? What, baby? I read my essay in front of the class, the one about you. I smiled into the phone, and they all clapped. My throat caught. They said they want to meet you someday. Well, I said, you tell them I'm not as scary as I sound. Bella laughed. That's what makes you cool. You're soft with me, but you stand up to the rest. That night, I took out my old photo albums. I flipped through birthdays, Christmases, beach trips, school plays. There were so many faces. Some had faded. Some had changed. But one thing hadn't. In every photo I was there, cooking, smiling, holding someone's coat, wiping someone's face, and in the last few years, invisible, until now. The next morning, I walked downtown and met Carol at the diner. She slid me a small envelope across the table. What's this? Open it, she said. Inside was a gift card for a spa day. I figured it's time someone took care of you for once. She smiled. Carol, you didn't have to. I know, but I wanted to, and that made all the difference. Later that day, a delivery truck pulled into my driveway. It was Bella, holding a canvas under her arm. She ran up the porch steps with that big smile of hers. I painted something, she said. It's for your living room. She turned the canvas around. It was a big tree with thick roots and a strong trunk. But in the middle of the branches, a little house, with the words, "She made it her own again." I hugged her so tight, she squealed. That evening, I made myself a cup of tea, sat on the porch, and watched the sky turn orange and gold. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't alone. I wasn't forgotten. I was free. The phone rang. It was Andrew again. I let it go to voicemail, not out of spite, out of peace. Some bridges don't need to burn. They just need to be walked away from. I went to bed that night with the doors locked, the papers signed, the cameras on, and the power back where it belonged, in my hand. And in the quiet of that room, I whispered to myself, this is my house, my name, my life, and I'm done apologizing for any of it.